Good day to our viewers on EBNet Stream. I'm pleased to welcome you to the first in a series of what we call executive meet and greets. And I'm pleased today to be joined by the recently appointed Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Abax Investments, Lebo Thubisi. Lebo, welcome.
Thanks, Leon. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Good to have you with us. And first of all, congratulations on the appointment. It's only been a matter of days. When did you join Abax?
No, thank you. So I joined Abax at the beginning of this year in the role. I think having spent obviously just almost 14 years with Abax Investments.
That's right. So I should declare Lebo and I know each other well from having been colleagues in the Alexander Forbes Award. And it was lovely to see his appointment in the asset management industry and to see the new up and coming guys in that industry. And Abax as a firm itself is doing exceptionally well in terms of investment performance and growth in assets. So Lebo, maybe we can start off before we get into finding out a little bit about you. Tell our viewers something about Abax and the history of Abax and where you are right now as a business.
Yeah, no, thanks, Leon. And so Abax is one of the more established boutiques. It was founded in 2003. Majority of the founders are still within the organization. In terms of AUM, we're just slightly north of 100 billion across, sort of a multi-strat of solutions. I mean, at the inception of the business, the business was started off partly with hedge fund solutions and a well-known sort of long-only solution, but it's grown, quite considerably into multi-asset, fixed income, and the likes, and so quite well established in, call it, having the full ambit of opportunities that any client would arguably, sort of be looking for.
So
in terms of personnel.
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, sorry. So in terms of personnel, so the whole business itself has about 28 employees, where the vast majority are, in fact, investment professionals. And I think it's an important point to make in that I think, many organizations talk about this, but this business lives it, that it's an investment-led organization. That, some of the executives are portfolio managers. And I think that will always be, call it, in the mantra of this business, that, through the life of it, it'll largely be an investment-led business.
So first of all, is it based all in Cape Town, all staff in Cape Town?
Correct. So it is our preference to really, whilst there's some element of hybrid, that we're all located in the same place. And I think, true to this mantra of being investment-led, Leon, the cross-pollination of ideas and, checking in, I mean, that happens quite well in an environment where you're next door to each other. And so if there's any question about whether through our growth we'll have different offices, currently we don't, and the preference is to continue to be in the same office. And so I think in me deciding to join the organization, I always knew that I'd have to move down to Cape Town.
So I was just about to ask you, you've had to make the great trek back to Cape Town. Are the Cape Townians accepting you and treating you well?
So I'm fortunate. So when I left Johannesburg at the end of 2000, I came to study at the University of Cape Town, met my wife here, and actually post-university sort of worked in Cape Town for about an additional 6 years on top of that. So I'm actually quite home here, and so, I mean, clearly there are some advantages of being here in that the sun only sets at 8 here, and so and it's quite picturesque versus where I think you are, so yeah, it's actually been a good move to be down here.
So Lebo, I've noticed recently with a lot of the I think you refer to it as boutique asset management firms. I keep on referring to the lesser known or up and coming, which might not be the right term, but it's interesting to look at these firms and see how many of them have got a pedigree in hedge fund management. And obviously from your perspective, and you can explain to the audience a little bit more about your background in multi-management, research on the multi-management side. So effectively, you've had a very broad view of asset managers over time. You're now coming into an asset management firm that has this hedge fund pedigree, and there's a number of them that are coming to the fore lately. Why do you think that is indeed the case?
Yeah. And so, I started my career at JP Morgan. And so they had call it an administration arm in South Africa, based down in Cape Town, in fact. And so I was in the grad program there, so call it the present day Curo business. And post that, I joined a multi-manager called Bright Solutions, which was the largest fund of hedge fund at the time. And that's in fact how I got to know this business. In that, Bright had an allocation to Abax, and so I think what's somewhat propelled, some of these businesses to have long only money is their track records in hedge funds. And so, currently today, ABAX has, hedge funds across the asset class spectrum. So call it equities, fixed income, multi-strat, and the likes. And so I think a client at the end of the day is going to back a business that has a process that is repeatable. And so, arguably, one thing that ABAX has shown through the call it more 2 decade track record is that that process is repeatable. The focus on quality, the focus on risk adjusted returns, and the likes. And so, if you look at even the long only funds, you can see that signature, sort of permeate across the board. I think it's well positioned, by the way, given its growth in long only, to continue to talk the hedge fund story. I think it's important that we consider, if you look at the track record of hedge, by the way, just as an industry over the last 5 to 7 years, that on a net of fee basis, they've actually done far better than any combination of equity and bonds, during that period. And so I think, it's no surprise that, our other compatriots, in fact, have also been successful at launching long only strategies because it's off the back of this, hedge fund track record. And I think you and I can both agree that what's been very difficult in South African markets has been finding this, risk-adjusted returns, so positive real returns. And I think managers from the hedge fund space have proven that they've been able to do that. And so I think it's been a good sort of springboard. I think managers can come from any quarter. I'm not in the hundred saying that the only quarter that good managers can come from is from the hedge fund space, but I agree with you that if you've seen where the growth of boutiques has come from, quite a few of them have had this kind of pedigree, because markets have been difficult, markets have been volatile. I mean, they'll continue to be volatile. If anything is a strong feature in hedge funds, Leon, is the ability to go long and short. Right. And generally those strategies typically benefit from a volatile environment. I think that's been, call it the tailwind, if I can put it that way.
So, from your perspective, you've been brought in as the deputy CEO. What does that mean? What is your role,
Yeah.
and also what is your role in terms of the investment side of it, the processes and the approach that everyone follows? Are you involved in both, or have you been brought in more of a business sort of capacity?
Yeah. So it's definitely the latter. And you yourself have been, seen and been inside investment-led organizations. That it's important that call it a business manager, an executive person, have a good innate understanding of investments, because, you need to be able to speak on behalf of the portfolio managers. And so the one thing, as an example, inside this business is that, we want to make sure that 90% of the time of PMs is spent on investments. But then that means there has to be a very strong team that's able to speak on behalf of the business. And so definitely my role and responsibility permeates, call it, investments and business, because I think it's important to be able to speak on their behalf. A great example of this is, when the team have developed, interesting ideas, who takes that out? I mean, yes, you always want to see the key individual as a potential client, but you need to be able to have someone who's able to build a relationship. And so part of my responsibility is definitely stakeholder management. Part of my responsibility is definitely growth, and not growth for the sake of it, but I think the team has very good track records across, the spectrum of solutions that they have. Somebody has to be able to take that brand out. And I think traditionally, our business has been very much focused on, let's produce a risk adjusted return for the clients. And the field of dreams example, let's build it and they'll come. And I think historically the business has been successful in that regard. But I think the environment warrants, making sure that you're front and center in front of clients. And so that's arguably part of my responsibility.
So just to expand a little bit again in terms of your time, both at Brait and Alex Forbes Investments, and the roles that you fulfilled there, and how that indeed would support the role that you now have and the learnings that you had from that.
Yeah. So I'll wear, Anthony Sedgwick and Maurice van Rooyen's hat because they're the two individuals that ushered me into this business. And so majority of my career has been in manager research. As I said, for a good portion of the first 5 years, all I was looking at was hedge funds locally and globally. And I had the fortunate opportunity to join Investment Solutions, or the today Alex Forbes Investments, and again, cut my teeth at, call it, long only side of things, also local and global. The business had expanded their reach into, private markets. And so, the one thing that is important to consider for a success of the business is the strategic thinking, right? The forward-looking aspects, whether it is about product development, whether it's about how you set up investment team for success, and those things. And so I think my experience, having looked at some of the best asset managers locally and globally, I would say, I've got something to contribute, sincerely within the team to say, look, how do we take an already successful business to the next phase, in a sincere way, in a way that doesn't change the culture of the business, and in fact, actually strengthens it. And so that's, I think, if you were to ask Anthony or Marius, arguably that's the one thing that will come across most is that, look, they've spent a lot of time almost in the weeds, if you will, right? Investments. And so it's important to have somebody who's always looking up. And I would say multi-managers, in the main, part of their role and responsibility is always to look up. And so I would say it's the marriage of those two aspects of any successful business, that you must have both, the strategic thinking, but obviously keep true to what's core to the business, and that's producing investment results for clients.
So I was thinking when I was driving this morning back from dropping my son off at school, there's consolidation taking place in the industry, and with more and more legislation coming, I'm talking about the institutional or retirement
Yes.
funding industry right now.
Yeah.
That consolidation is set to continue. That's the reality. So when you look at Abax as a business, how do you guys view your growth going forward? Is it retail at all costs, or do you still see growth potential from the institutional space, which is more and more consolidating into the hands of gatekeepers in essence?
Yeah, that's actually a question we're grappling with now, and I think it's a question that the business has always grappled with. So if you look at the makeup of the client base of ABAX, they were very clear that they are supporters of the industry rather than competitors. And what do I mean by that? So in the main, majority of our clients are what we call aggregators, or we are sub-advisors to these clients, right? That we think that we're great partners to businesses that want to, kind of extend their distribution, whether it's both in the low, call it institutional retail space, that we blend well as an underlying manager. And so, so strategically, that's not going to change for us, that we want to be able to provide the right type of solution for any aggregator. And so there is an institutional strategy in that regard. And we've seen, I think some success actually, especially of late, where aggregators come and say, look, we've actually looked at the numbers, whether it is an institutional analysis or peer-based analysis on the retail side, that look, given how you've kind of stayed true to your philosophy, we can blend you with another manager and the likes. And so I think we continue to enjoy that from institutional aggregators. But even on the retail side, what we've seen in the development of DFMs, and in that, they've seen our value add in how they advise clients, and some of the solutions that they built out. And so our strategy is, as long as, number one, we stay true to who we are as a business in terms of how we produce returns, and secondly, to make sure that what we position in front of them is appropriate for them. So branding is an outcome of the process rather than something we chase. I think if that's clear. So you won't see any meaningful change to how we manage our business in that regard, because I think we've built it in such a way that we see ourselves as partners to aggregators and DFMs and the likes, rather than to kind of compete on a brand basis. So yes, this consolidation is, I mean, I remember in my old life is an assessment that we did that it's a global trend, and as you know, South Africa tends to follow on in this regard, and we've seen some data points locally here of that happening, and I think it will continue. The one thing that we used to look at is, if you look at, there's more asset manager names in South Africa than there are, call it, investable stocks, right? And in the current environment where you can see there's, sort of cost compression, conversations around transformation, trying to find synergies, that's going to continue. But I think it's always important to remember why you're doing it. And so if we don't have a client at the center of that decision, I think the risk of it, sort of going wrong is high. And a lot has been written, by the way, Leon, about, M&A and its success and lack thereof. And so I think that theme is going to definitely continue. The question is, why do you do it? And is it actually going to benefit clients in that regard?
So you just mentioned there the number of asset managers versus listed stocks, lack of IPOs and so on coming to market. I know that in your latter part of your days at within Alex Forbes, you had branched out private markets playing a role in that respect. I'm sensing that there's probably a passion within you with regards to that because of the developments and so on behind it. So how do you see that now within the context of Abax? Should I expect to see Abax private equity come into the fore soon?
Let me not divulge any secrets, Leon. Any IP, and I think it's an important question, and I think you've seen our business evolve, right? So if we didn't want to evolve, we'd have just stayed a hedge fund business, a bespoke hedge fund business, and so I think part of this evolution was partly to meet the needs of what clients we thought needed, and secondly, also from a business sustainability perspective. And so that same mindset will be used to assess where do we go next. I think enough data out there suggests that I think private markets have a much stronger role to play in a holistic, call it institutional pension fund portfolio, and also in discretionary investments. And so, and I think even the insulating your business for sustainability, there's that component too. And so, without answering you directly, I think there is something to be said about strategically thinking about, looking at that.
Yeah. So I just want to, we're nearing to a close now, and I want to share a little bit about you with our audience. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on some of the facts that I'm about to state. So you started your career at JP Morgan. You studied a B business science. Maybe you can
Yeah,
just
that's a
expand it.
business, correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, finance economics, correct.
And you've been working for about 15 years. Is that correct?
So I started my career in 2006.
So that is
And
reaching on 20 years.
so I started,
Okay.
yes,
So
correct, correct.
throughout all of that, what has been the secret to your success of getting to where you are right now? So have there been additional studies that you've done? What lessons have you learned? What can you
Mm,
share so that
mm,
we can all walk away knowing a little bit about your path to success and people can um,
mm,
learn a
mm.
bit in that respect?
Yeah, wow. That is a 30-minute question, but
In
let
two
me try
minutes, please.
to. Yeah, so I would say very early on in my career, the advice I got was, you know, um, always have a mentor, So I've been fortunate throughout my entire career, whether it was at JP Morgan, whether it was at Braid, whether it was Investment Solution during your tenure at Alex Forbes, that, I've always wanted to put my hand up to learn more. Right. And so, I've had great formal and informal what's this mentoring over the years. And that's what brought up my, interests, because the one question I typically get, Leon, is, but you've been an investment professional for so long in your career. Why would you want to go into business? And I think it's partly that process where, your mentors ask you, the a certain line of questioning to mirror you and the likes, that you eventually realize that your passion is holistically running a business, dealing with people, budgeting and those things. So my one advice that I can give to anybody is always have a mentor, always look for a sponsor. And that sponsor may not be looking for you. You must go looking for the sponsor. I recall the time when you were there, one of the things that, sort of we went through your process was, where are your leadership gaps? Where do you want to go? And I think I was very open with you, if I remember correctly, about that. Look, my desire is to run a business, an investment management business. And part of that process, well, these are the skills that you need, or the traits that are required, but that's a process. And so I've done a business management course via GIPS, so general management course that for me was important. And remembering that I'm still an investment professional, one thing that has been a journey of mine was to complete the qualification, the Chartered Alternative Investment qualification, because again, private markets are my passion, but it's important to solidify that with, kind of technical knowledge. And so, those two things for me have been important to balance: the call it leadership responsibilities, and being edified by these general management courses and the technical courses. And I think that will something that I'll carry throughout my career. So have a sponsor, have a mentor, make sure that you continue to grow yourself, both from a soft skills and hard skills perspective.
So, in closing, let me share this with you, which you probably have never thought about or don't realize in terms of the external perception of yourself. So, I never had any doubt in my mind that you would end up running a business, and the word that comes to mind is clarity. So, both in when you explain things, but also in your thought patterns, there's always been clarity, and I've always felt that about you, and that's something that is extremely valuable. So on that note,
Thank you.
Lebo,
Thank
we
you.
wish you, on behalf of all of our viewers on EBNet Stream, we wish you the very best. We wish
Thank you, Leon.
Abax the very best. And I look forward to seeing your continued success.
Well, much appreciated. I've enjoyed this interview, and yeah, keep well, and it's great to see you too.
That was Lebo Thubisi, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Abax Investments, and this is Leon Kraling of EBNet Stream.